Okay, so you're in Arizona now. John Gannon, I know him from Philly. Great guy, hell of a coach. You got to be excited about all the verticals, the shots. Have you given him shit about that clip yet?
Pew pew pew.
All right, cool. This is a privilege. I really have a great appreciation for quarterbacks in the league and everything they have to do and everything they go through because I hit them for a long time, and it's not fun. I would imagine to be the quarterback. And Colt McCoy is a guy that, as I texted around to my different teammates that knew him, and said, "Give me something down and dirty on this guy." He's got like a squeaky clean record. I couldn't get anything, so we'll see what we can get out of Colt McCoy today. Colt, I appreciate you coming on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for waiting around this afternoon for me.
Well, you got to have those NFL security meetings. It's not like you've ever been to one.
I think I just sat through my 14th NFL security meeting. No gambling,
Yeah, can't
especially
do
while
that.
you're in the building and all kinds of rules. There's so many rules now.
Well, what do they say now? Like that's an interesting one because some guys got in trouble last year, and I'm just curious, like how they changed the meeting. Like, did they give you guys more information? Because I do think some of the rules are a little cloudy, and
For
that's how
sure.
guys are getting caught up.
For sure, they gave us basically six rules. They narrowed it down to six rules, but anytime you have a presentation on gambling for 30 minutes, there's like a lot. There's a lot of information. And I'm looking around. The coaches are sitting behind me because coaches and players. I'm just trying to figure out this new offense. I'm trying to figure out how to get us all lined up right and run a positive play.
Yep, yep,
I
no
think the big
question.
thing on the gambling stuff right now is obviously some guys have been popped for it, right? Like essentially what they want is no gambling on anything at the workplace and really in your free time during the season. In the off season, like so they define the off season as the Hall of Fame game to the Super Bowl is the season. Outside of that, I guess technically if you wanted to gamble or place some bets at a sports book, you could do that. But I think the safe thing is what they're trying to tell us is just, don't do it. A lot of the questions were like, well, what about fantasy football? Like, like I want to play fantasy football with my boys, and I guess the rule there is you can't play daily fantasy football. Like you can't buy a
Okay.
team for the weekend, but
hmm
you could play a season long fantasy football as long as the prize is not more than $250.
Oh, that's not bad. Because when I was in the league, everybody was like joining leagues. Like fantasy football was catching on fire, and I
I
never
bet
got
I
it.
bet over half our locker room plays fantasy football with like my high school buddies. Like whatever
Yeah,
you want you
yeah.
want to you want to play.
Who's the teammate of yours that your high school buddies have really been into drafting?
Who I bet if you took a poll like in the locker room, I know that there's several guys who have like little group. I don't know that anybody's in the same. Like I don't know that anybody in our locker room is playing fantasy football against each other, but I know they're
Yeah,
in
yeah,
leagues with like your boys or your friends or whatever your
yeah.
little group is. Like I think it's a fun thing. I mean, the fans enjoy it. Like
It's fun. The punishments are really fun. Like after football, I've been in a few leagues, and one of our leagues, the loser had to be on a big billboard. Another one, loser had to bleach his hair.
yeah,
That's the real fun. The prize is
right.
cool, but like really, what you're doing is you're running from last place, and
Yeah,
that's
it
what makes
sounds
it
like
thrilling.
I was playing golf the other day, and there was a group of guys out there having like the time of their life. They're like the group in front of me, playing up at a nice course here in Scottsdale. And I finally I catch up to them after the round. Like, what are you guys doing? Oh, well, this is our pre-draft trip. I'm like, your pre-draft? But yeah, this is our pre-draft pick or trip to figure out like who's gonna pick first, all that. Like we
Yes.
spent the weekend up here in Scottsdale. We're
Yep.
gonna come back like when fantasy football starts. I'm like, so you have a pre-draft trip, a draft trip, and then you have
hmm
like a celebration trip.
The
Are y'all all
punishment
married? Like,
trip
is your
too.
wife letting you do all this? Like, what's going
Their
on?
wives are cool as shit, man. I cannot imagine getting a pre, a post, and a during trip. Like it's enough just to say, "Hey, I'm going out to get drunk today and draft a bunch of football players 15 minutes down the road." Like to get those trips is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the
um,
loser, I guess, of the season before had a pretty precarious outfit on.
oh, did he?
I think the losers like they definitely had to pay. He might have had to pay for the whole trip. I don't know.
Well, you know what? Like to get a free trip I mean, away from the family for a couple days, I might pay for a trip like that. That's okay.
Yeah, right.
So we're talking about changing landscape. I can't wait to ask you about NIL at Texas because dudes are making a ton of money there. I think you could have made some serious bank. But first, a Texas-themed thing for you. We do something called layup line here, which is we pick a song to try to get the juices flowing. And a lot of times when a guest comes on, we'll find out what kind of music they like. And I hear that George Strait is your guy.
Love George Strait.
Is he the number one for you all time?
I mean, every time somebody says George Strait, you just gotta
You just
cap,
got
right?
a little tip of the cap.
It's just
Yeah.
when I grew up, I grew up in a small town out in West Texas, and like everybody listened to '90s country, and like at the time
I
it
love
was
90s
like
country.
George and Garth, right? Like
Yep.
anytime a '90s country song comes on, it's like, I don't know if it's like my all-time favorite. But it takes me back to where I grew up, and like that's what everybody listened to. It was what everybody played. Like that's how.
Has your town been in a song? In any song?
You ever heard of Aaron Watson? He's like a Texas country guy.
Yeah.
He lives back in my hometown. Like my hometown is called Buffalo Gap, Texas. There's like 400 people there.
Okay, cool. Well, if you get a song with 400 people, that's pretty good. Is there a '90s country song that you would like to select for our layup line? Would it be a George Strait? Would it be somebody else?
It'd probably be George or Garth. Like Blame It All on My Roots. I showed up
cool.
with Boots.
That's great. Yeah, that's
Something
great.
like
My kids love that song. We'll roll with some Garth Brooks. Do you like anybody now, or are you kind of like me where, well, I do like people now, but I just don't like a lot of the new country?
I'm not. I mean, yeah, I don't like. It's not really country, right? It's kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of pop.
I'm with
Yeah.
you. I mean, some songs every now and then come on, like it's good, but I fall back more to like the Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson. That seems to be like country to me.
So do you know who my oldest child, his name is Waylon. So
there you go.
You and me both, buddy. So, all right, here we go. Some more Texas stuff. You were at Texas for the Texas USC game. And I'm kind of like, I remember, there's one of those sporting events that I'll never forget, like where I was, like the exact place I was, the time of year and everything. And it was just such an amazing scene on TV. What's something that people don't know about that game?
So I basically at that time was just a hamburger eater, right? I'm traveling on the trips. I'm eating free hamburgers. We're having
good food though.
In and out in the Rose Bowl Stadium the day before the game. Like it's my freshman year, and at the time if you were a red shirt, you couldn't take a snap. One snap, you blow your whole red shirt year. You play, and so I was technically like the backup, but trying to stay redshirted. So there was a couple other quarterbacks on the roster. That game was still like the best college football game, maybe the best game I've ever seen like live in person. So I'm holding the clipboard, I'm marking down plays. Like, I'm running the scout team during the week, and USC's got Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all these like superstars, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I just graduated from high school. There's 400 people in my hometown. There's more people in my dorm room. My dorm room my dorm itself has its own zip code, right? Yeah. It's way more people than my hometown. Everything is just new to me, and it doesn't hit me that, we're 13-0, we're going to the Rose Bowl, a national championship. This must be normal, right? So I'm sitting there holding a clipboard, watching the game. Gets down to the last minute. Vince plays one of the best performances of all time, and we score, we go crazy, we win, and I had this epiphany, like I can't play this. Like I could never do the things that Vince Young that my eyes just watched Vince Young do. Like there's I've got to go home and like totally reevaluate like my situation, because I'll tell you, the night before the game, we go to like the it's like the ESPN studios, like the Disney studios or whatever that's right there close to the Rose Bowl, and we have like a team dinner. That's where our dinner is. And I remember Vince at the time, he lost the Heisman to Reggie Bush, but he was the best player in the world, college football wise. So he's kind of up in his own booth. He's got media every day. He comes up, he puts his arm around me. We had a great relationship, and was like, "Hey man, as soon as this game's over, I'm going to the league. It's your show next year, man. You can do it." And I'm sitting there like, okay, like I kind of sleep on it that night. We go to the game, best performance I've ever seen, and I get back on the plane. We spend the night, everybody's celebrating, everybody stays up all night, whatever. It's fun. We win the national championship. You get back on the plane and go home, and I'm thinking like, man, I don't think I can do this. Like, I mean, this is great and all, but if I put myself out there in that situation, like, I ain't ready.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it really transformed my mind. Like that, the night before that game is what really made me, like, I worked hard. Like, I needed to put on some weight. I grew a couple inches. Like, I hit a growth spurt when I got to, everything worked out great for me. But I spent, from that night after the game till the very next year, literally all I could think about was, I can't let anybody else down. Like, we just went to the national, like, I have so much work to do.
Yeah.
And so I think it was amazing to be a part of one of the best games I've ever seen or witnessed. But it really also kind of, lit a fire under me that I gotta go get ready to do this.
Now, Vince, actually, I know Vince a little bit because he climbed Killy with us.
Yes.
For Waterboys, and he was awesome, man. Vince was an absolute pleasure to be around. But, like, there couldn't be a bigger celebrity in the state of Texas at that point outside of Vince. And, like it soon became you. It's like whoever is playing quarterback for 3-4 years for that college, especially at that time, it feels like you're probably under more pressure than you are in the league even. And you can't walk down the street, I would imagine. Arch Manning, I know Cooper a little bit, and, they came here one weekend just to visit family because his sister's at UVA. It was like a formality, and I was like, well, we got a chance. But he ended up down at Texas, and right now I'm just imagining the kind of celebrity status, especially in today's game with recruiting and NIL money. How hard was it for you to, like, navigate and just walk around and be normal there?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to remember, like, when Coach Brown was there and I started getting recruited there, Texas had won 10 games in a row for like 11 straight years.
Yeah.
Right. So the program was competing, and they were performing at a high level. They were getting all the recruits they wanted, and then obviously we've had a dip over the last 12 or 13 years, or however long it's been. I think Texas is they're really starving to, like, win 10 games again, and all of a sudden they get the number one recruit in the country, which the only other time they've ever done that, I think, was when they got Vince Young, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, like, the expectations for him on campus, I'm sure, are crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily fair to him, but the whole, like you talked about earlier, the whole landscape of college football has changed with NIL, and it's essentially 1 year of free agency, right? You play 1 year, you hit free agency. Who's going to pay me the most? I'll go there, right? Like, it's very crazy. I don't understand it. It seems very gray to me. Like, it's not black and white anymore. I mean, I remember when I was in college, going into my senior year, compliance obviously was just like breathing down your neck all the time.
All the time, dude.
There's this little barbecue joint in town called Rudy's Barbecue. Great barbecue. It's like a gas station barbecue, but it's really good. And anybody who comes in takes a picture with, like, the Rudy's bottle of barbecue sauce. And so I remember I walked into Rudy's. They asked me to take a picture. Sure. I paid for my meal. I took a picture. They put up on the wall. Well, I almost got suspended for a half. Like, 2 nights before my first game my senior year. Like, we're ranked really high. Expectations are high. Like, I know we're going to beat whoever we're going to play the first game, but I'm sweating bullets thinking, like, I may not get to play the first half of my senior year, of my first game of my senior year, right? And now you look at, like, what's going on. It's completely different.
How much money you think? I mean, like Arch is going to make a lot of money. You ever think about how much money you could have made being at Texas?
I don't know, man. They're still selling my jerseys on campus. I haven't seen any money yet.
You haven't seen a dime, dude.
Right.
And Arch lost his ID evidently twice in his first month on campus. Is there any advice you would give to Arch Manning about just, like, locating his things, or
I'd be curious to find out where he lost them.
Where you got any guesses?
Hopefully, it just fell out of his pocket, like walking to class or something.
I don't think that's what it was. You were there. Were you there at the same time as Kevin Durant?
Yeah, same year we came in the
You
same.
got any KD stories from Texas?
He lived. We lived on the same floor in the dorm room.
No way.
Yeah, so KD came in and he was just 7 feet tall and kind of lanky and like the athletes sort of hung out, right? It's a big campus, like, but we would see each other eating the same. There was one athletic dining hall at the time,
Yeah.
and now they got like a dozen of them or whatever. But we would all eat at the same place, so you would see the basketball players. You'd go play like in the rec, like play pickup games and stuff, and everybody was like, who is Kevin Durant, right? He's not from like Texas. He came from way up north. And so we play games in the rec, and everybody had an idea of like, man, this guy's legit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember the first home basketball game our freshman year, like we walk over to the Urban Center, watch the game. He drops like 40 points or something, and everybody's like, oh, this guy just scored 40 points. Right, and then obviously he's evolved into one of the best players in the world. He's unbelievable. It was pretty cool to have that year with him. I think we went to the Elite Eight. Like it was fun.
And the guy loves football. I think he's a Commanders fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was pulling for you. Yeah, so it's pretty funny. It comes full circle.
He came to probably a home game a year when I was there.
Yeah, well, he's a freaking legend. But how about Mack Brown? Are you surprised at the success he was able to? Did you ever think he'd coach again after his stint at Texas? I mean, he seemed like he had done everything, had everything.
Right.
Why come back and grind like that? But he seems to love it.
Right. No, I'm obviously, I feel privileged that when I was in college, I had the same coaching staff, my whole time. Same offensive coordinator, same head coach. And obviously, I love them, very biased about them. I had a pretty strong inclination that Coach Brown would coach again. I don't think he loved the way it ended at UT, right? After 17 years, all the things that he accomplished, the amount of games he won, he turned the program back around. Yeah. And to kind of end that way, I know that it probably, as a competitor, he's a competitor. I felt like, the right opportunity, the right situation, he'd get back into it. And I'm not surprised at all at the success he's had at North Carolina. They've been competitive and almost winning the ACC, almost
every year.
Yeah, every year.
We used to beat the dog out of them, and now they're like a powerhouse.
Yeah, he's got a good quarterback. He had a good quarterback before. Sam Howell's now in Washington. And I think his quarterback now, Drake May, I think is his name, is a solid player. I mean, you got a gunslinger, like you got a chance, and he's found him.
So when you go to Cleveland, my big question was like, you feel all this pressure at Texas. It's because you guys are so good, and it's like whoever gets to sit in that chair and take snaps. You are you're inheriting this awesome opportunity. When you go to Cleveland, the quarterback situation is a jersey with 40 names taped to the back of it. And I don't know how far down that list you are, if you can remember the guys around you, but it's a pretty long list.
It's a long list, yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, what was tougher, the pressure of being the man at Texas or being the man in Cleveland with this huge, really unrealistic task at hand?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, when you played a home game at Texas, especially a big game, and you have to go do media after the game, there'd be 100 people in there.
Yeah,
like cameras everywhere. You're getting questions from people all over the country, not just your local guys.
Yeah.
And so I think that part handled or helped me be able to handle some of the situations that come up in the NFL. I remember after my first game in Cleveland, I walk into the media room, like where you go, and there was like maybe 7 or 8 guys, people, men and women. So that was a big difference. Now, I have the utmost respect for Cleveland, for the city, for the fans, for the organization. Like I can keep my head high. Like I literally gave everything I had, and I know that all of my teammates did too. Like we wanted to win, right? We had a good mix of older guys and younger guys. There was just constant turnover above us, right? I played for 3 head coaches, and I had 3 general managers and 2 owners in 3 years, right? So it's that, at the time you don't understand that at all as a young player, but now
You just think that's how it is.
yeah, exactly. And now
It's not
being
how it is.
going into my 14th season, I look back on that and I'm thankful for some of the things that I learned through that process. But you realize like that's not really that normal.
Yeah.
And the teams that you see in the playoffs every year are teams that generally don't have much turnover. They're pretty successful year in and year out. They're pretty consistent. And I think as a player you hope to be on a team like that or go to a team that has a chance to make runs and do things the right way. And listen, Cleveland was great for me. I learned so much. I worked hard. We were in a lot of games that we didn't win. We found ways to like mess it up every time, and I had good coaches there. I learned a bunch of football, and I think it has definitely all the experiences that I learned there have helped me. Although if I could do it all over again, I mean, this league is about winning, and you got to win, and I understand that, and that's I understand how I kind of got pushed out.
So Dable was one of your first coaches, yeah?
He was the coordinator in my first year. Loved him. It was awesome.
Yeah, easy to see why he's succeeding now, huh?
Yeah, I like Coach Dayball really helped me like understand the game. Like I'm coming from college. I'm a rookie. Like I've played a bunch. I got a lot of experience, but like the NFL is so different than college, right? There's just so much more on your plate. The game is faster. The windows close faster. Like the protections and just everything about the position is it's just harder. And Coach Dayball more than anything taught me about defenses in the NFL, about pressures and coverages and how they tie together, what the fronts are, like all kinds of stuff that like I would have never learned, right? So some of the things that I learned from Dayball early on my rookie year, like I still think about as I'm playing now.
Yeah, and you probably watched that kind of process with Daniel Jones, who you played with in New York momentarily. I mean, he's improved so much with having Brian. And I'm a big fan of his game. I mean, he may not be a top 5 guy, but, man, these good athletic quarterbacks don't grow on trees. I thought he had a great year last year. He was raw coming out. How raw was Daniel Jones?
The DJ, what people don't understand is he's way more athletic than what you think.
Yeah.
Right? He's big, he's strong, he's fast. Like, he can make plays with his feet. He's tough. Like, he'll stand in there like all the time. Like, he's not afraid to get hit at all.
Yeah.
But I think he made a big jump last year, right? I think it helped him having Saquon. I mean, we played them week 2 this year. I know that he's much improved. I think, looking back to the Cleveland days, like, one thing DJ hasn't had is like he's had a bunch of coaches too, right?
Yes.
He's been able to like stick in there. Like keep working, and it feels like okay, he's like he got a good contract, he's got a good coach, like he's in a good place. Like I'm really really happy for him. I think in Cleveland, like turnover is hard. Like I learned 5 systems my first 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's always and guys have done it, and there's been a lot of quarterbacks better than me who didn't do it. Right, it's just a matter of like where you fall into all of this, and so, but DJ is, man, he was fun to be. We're really close. He can make all the throws. I think his feet just like allow him to, like he's going to get 2 or 3 first downs with his legs every game, and that just crushes defenses.
Yeah. Oh, totally, and I can empathize with the coaches thing. In St. Louis, we had about 5 or 6 defenses in my 8 years there, it felt like. And so I know it's got to be even harder on a quarterback. What do you think with Daniel Jones getting paid was the first thing that he bought? He doesn't seem like a guy that spends a lot of money.
Nothing.
What is Daniel Jones into? Like, give us a look into Daniel Jones, the human being.
I texted him. I said, like, did you buy a couch? Or, like, what did you get for your apartment? Like – but man, like DJ is he's great. Like guys love him. I loved playing, alongside of him. Like, it was a fun. That was the COVID year that I was there, so
Yeah.
like, you technically weren't supposed to be in the same room at any point, but like,
Mm-hmm.
we just figured out how to, like, we're playing football. If you're going to allow
Yeah.
us to go out there and play football, we got to prepare. We got to
Yeah.
talk. We got to
Yeah.
understand like what we got to be on the same page. So we spent a ton of time together, and I'm very happy for him.
But he's got no hobbies that you know of.
He tries to play golf, I think.
He tries to play golf. Yeah, well,
He
that
played
makes
golf
sense.
a few times.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
he's just down to earth, very humble.
Yeah.
Just you can't not like a guy like that.
No, he seems great. And then another quarterback I wanted to ask you about was Brandon Whedon, because when he was a rookie, he was older than you,
Yeah.
and he was older than probably 50% of the team.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, did y'all make him do like rookie dinners and shit like that?
Right. Plus, he already had a bunch of money, right? Because he played in the bigs.
Exactly. So how do you guys treat a guy like that?
Right. No, Brandon was great, and what I learned at that point was like, okay, first time in my career, like, I've been playing here for 2 years. I want to play, right? Like,
Yeah.
But you draft a guy in first round, like I learned real quick. You draft a guy in the first round, like they're gonna get every chance to play. They're gonna play.
Yeah.
Like it's just,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Plus he's a little bit older, so
Yeah.
I think that was a hard season for me. But at the same time, like there's nothing worse than a bad quarterback room, right? Like having like some like just not camaraderie and like working together and like it's that the quarterback room trickles down to the whole organization, right? So you want to have just a very structured, very sound, like protective sort of like room. And I feel like I was able to do that. Even though you want to play, like let's figure this all out, because the ultimate goal is team over you, and you want to win games. And I think that Brandon got put into a situation kind of like I was in for a couple years. Like there was turnover, there was new coaches, there was new systems, and that's just how it was.
Yeah, it's the Cleveland factory. Yeah, like with you being at times in your career a backup quarterback, at times a starter, like are those two different social roles on a team? And how do you like, everybody I talk to loves you, man. Like, if I'm Colt McCoy, how do I be cognizant of not being as popular or liked as the starting quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all want to play. There's only one guy that's going to trot out there on Sundays, right? There's only 32 guys that get to go out there and do it, right? And so I certainly don't take it lightly, the fact that the times I get to go out there and do it, because that's what we all want to do. Yeah. But at the same time, like, man, like you're a team player, right? I said it earlier. Jonathan Gannon, like that's one of the things he preaches is like team over you, and he's right. Like we all have to take on certain roles. Like some of the roles I've been in for my career is like I've got to be ready the moment that something happens to the starter to step on the field and go in the game. It's not going there and like fill in. It's not going there and like make a few. No, it's going there and win the game, right?
Yeah.
So what do I have to do on a week-to-week basis to make sure that I'm ready to do that?
Yeah.
Right. I remember last year, like Kyler battled some injuries early in the season. I played, and then he comes back, and like I threw some seeds in my mouth for playing the Patriots on Monday Night Football. I kind of get situated like kind of on the edge of the. I like to look at the game from the sideline from behind so I can see coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like bending over, and all of a sudden, boom, he goes down, third play of the game. And you're like, okay, well, like this is so unfortunate for him, but I prepared for this. Like this is what I studied all week long for. This is why I stayed up at the building until 8:00, on Friday night, just so I understand like our third down package and their third down package and what pressures they're going, right? And we ended up losing that game, but we felt like we should have won.
Yeah.
And so I just think for me, being in a lot of different rooms and a lot of different situations, I've learned that it's the team first. Yeah. And when you approach it that way, like there's no sulking, there's no pouting. It's like, no, like today I'm going to help the offensive line. Today I'm going to help the receivers. Today I'm going to talk to the DBs about their technique and their leverages and why they're playing that on this situation. Today I'm going to talk to the coaches and figure out, like, I think we need a better third down package. Like, there's so much that goes into it, and it's so hard to win in the NFL.
Yeah.
And if your starter and if your backup aren't on the same page, it's almost impossible.
Well, I heard a story about a time that you and Kirk were not on the same page because you threw parties at the same time. Is that a true story? And how do you navigate when both quarterbacks are throwing parties the same night?
I think that was just a lack of communication. Right? Let's just chalk it up to that.
You guys threw a party the same night. That's too good. That's too good. Okay.
We need to be better. That's a bogey right there.
That's a bogey for sure. A mulligan. You get that one back. My last question about Cleveland. Man, the Peyton Hillis year was, you had to be there, man. Like, it's just people today don't remember him. He took over the league. He got on the Madden cover, and he kind of disappeared, but he had this great moment that some guys just never get in the NFL. And I wonder if you could speak to that, and also, how's he doing now? Because I know the last time he was in the news, he was in some trouble, had an accident at the beach, and it was scary there for a second. So how's he doing, and what was it like playing with Peyton?
Yeah, it sounds like that was very traumatic. Like, sounds like he's happy to be alive, and that's a scary situation, right? Like your daughter's out there, or your son, your niece, like whoever. Like, that's, I mean, as a dad, I've got 4 kids. You don't ever want to put yourself in that situation. That's scary. So I'm just so thankful that, like, he's all right, and, like, he's recovered, and his kids are all right. Like, that's scary. Well, Peyton was my, like, roommate. That season he went crazy. Like, back in the day, you had to have a roommate during training camp. You were staying in
I remember.
Hotel or whatever. So, like, if you would have asked me then, like, is Peyton Hillis going to be on the cover of Madden and, like, go crazy this year? I would have been like, maybe. I don't know. Like, he was the punt returner in Denver, right? He was the backup to Darren McFadden and all those guys at Arkansas. Like, and he showed up to training camp and like just on a mission, right? Yeah. He wore that face mask that everybody kind of like nobody else ever had, kind of like the little ring on front of it like looked kind of scary. He wore a big number 40, like, and then he started running downhill. Like we started calling like gap schemes and like sort of defined like downhill runs, and bro, he went crazy. Yeah. And then for me, like. He could catch, right? He was a punt returner. He was like a third down back in Denver the year before. Like he could catch the ball, and so a lot of his yards were like we'd go empty, and like who's covering him, right? And he just week after week after week, and then you're like you said, like I don't know exactly what happened, what didn't happen, what all ended up in Cleveland, but that year. Like, he took over that town and our team, and, like, he touched the ball 20 times a game at least.
It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like that on the front end of it and on the back end of it. I mean, running backs, you never know. One year, the next year, but that guy that year he was the king, dude.
He was a beast. Yep.
And then you got to see another 1 year kind of thing. I mean, it wasn't a 1 year thing for Adrian Peterson because he's an all-time great. But I don't think anybody expected him to have that year he had in Washington. What was that like?
Well, from what I remember, he comes in for a visit, and I don't think that they were planning on signing him. I think they were like they were going to come in, work him out, kind of see where he's at, and like he shows up and he puts a big giant dip in his mouth and he crushes the workout, and then he won't leave, and he's like, "No, I'm playing," right? And so like. We kind of sign him, and then like we go to walk through the next day, and it's just full speed. I mean, full speed. I had played against him in college, right, when he was at Oklahoma. I was a freshman. We ended up beating him somehow. But I mean, I remember watching him like in warm-ups, thinking like, this is the crazy. Like this guy is unbelievable, right? Yeah. I think he took like a screen and he got on the sidelines and he started like moving his head,
bobbing his head.
Yeah, like good luck stopping him. So it was cool to like, 10 years later, like play with him in the NFL and hand him off duo. That's all he wanted. He's like, just call duo, which is like the double teams up front and just let him find a gap and go.
Yeah,
But
he also has one of the hardest handshakes in the history of
of
mankind.
all time, he'll crush your hand if you're not ready.
I was not ready for it the first time I met him, and had to put ice on my hand back at the hotel. I mean,
No question.
it was insane, dude.
No,
He's
and
an
that's how he
absolute
takes the
legend.
ball. You stick the ball out, like, okay, you're running like inside zone. I mean, it is like you better be ready for your arm to get like chopped off. Like,
Yeah,
like
dude, that's a contact sport right there.
yes,
That's unbelievable.
yes. But he was great, man. Like, you want to talk about a guy who just he would practice hard all week, and then he
Yeah,
played hard on Sunday, and then he's ready to go again on Monday. Like late in
yeah,
his career, like that. It was very impressive.
and he practiced a lot. I mean, he
Oh
didn't
yeah,
take too many days. That's crazy at that
oh
age.
yeah.
So here's the question: would you guys have won more in Washington if you played at a real NFL stadium?
I mean, is it as bad for the opposing team
Dude,
coming into the game as it is for us as the home team?
It is. This is funny. It's like talking to somebody on the other side of the wall. Yeah, it's bad over here too, Colt. The shit is fucked up over here. And if you look at what the fans have to deal with,
Yeah.
it's not real great there either. How bad was it for you guys?
I mean, dude, I mean,
The
like,
stadium
listen,
you're in now is state of the art.
oh yeah, our stadium out here is amazing. You know, indoors on grass.
Yeah,
I think
best of both worlds for you.
I'm not going to knock it that bad because I'm a big fan of grass fields. I think everybody
too.
should have grass.
Me
Like,
too.
as I'm getting older, like playing on turf fields, like going up to Seattle or like any of
Oh my God.
these places on
Detroit.
turf, like, dude, I can't. I mean, it's crazy how worse you feel for 2 or 3 days after the game.
Well, it's like we're hitting you onto concrete. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about you, like at least in the AFC North when James Harrison and those guys were
Yes.
just tattooing you early in your career.
Yes.
It was on grass, like thick, slow grass.
You play on grass. I just feel like like your joints and your ankles and your knees and your like it doesn't hurt. I have not I can't an engineer, a scientist, I can't prove why it's like that. But all I know is like based on how I feel after games, playing
I
on
know.
turf or playing on grass is not even close.
No, I know.
So
You talk-
FedEx has grass, which is nice.
Yeah, that's the one
positive.
plus there. Yeah, and Landover, there's not a lot of traffic. So, okay. So you talked about Dable earlier. You run into McVay in Washington. Obviously, the rest of his career has just been storybook stuff. What separates him as an offensive mind?
Yeah, so Sean and I got to be real close in Washington. He started as the quarterback's coach, then he started calling plays, and then he gets the LA job when he turns 30.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he and I are the same age. We're like 5 months apart, I think.
Yeah.
So we spent a ton of time together. Sean's just like the people that got him to where he's at, I think, are just super respected and know their track record speaks for itself. Jay Gruden, the Shanahans, John Gruden, like the guys that were in his ear and who he learned from, like really just set the stage for him. But then he took it to a whole nother level. Like he sees the game. Like he calls some of the best games I've played in the NFL are games that he's called. And he'll call plays from the sidelines, and like we'll go back and without even looking at the iPad or whatever we have, the tablet on the side, like he'll spit out every coverage, every front. Like, what did I see? Why didn't I throw it here? Like, and he's seeing all that from the sidelines. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been a backup for several years, and I try to like see things. It's so hard to see things from the sidelines; it's impossible. So, I just think that the way he was trained and brought up, and then what he turned it, he's super smart. Like,
Yeah.
understands like everything about the defense, the leverages, the techniques, the soft spots in zones. Like, it's run game and pass game. It's not one. And then he adds
just
in
as good in
the
the run
play
game,
actions
yeah.
and the keepers. Like everything
Yeah.
in his system looks the same to the defense, right? And then you don't know what to do, right?
Yep.
I mean, he literally toys with defensive ends. Like, if
He
you're
slows
gonna
us
crash,
down.
Yeah. You can't just like put your hand in the dirt and rush the quarterback. Like, he's
Yeah.
never going to let you do that. And
Yep.
then after Sean, like I was able to learn a bunch. I was there for 7 years from Jay and from Kevin O'Connell.
Yep.
Like,
Head coach now.
I just feel so privileged to like play for those guys because they helped me so much. We talked earlier, like I'd venture to say there's, plenty of quarterbacks who were more talented than me or better than me that, just got themselves in some situations. And, if you don't win in the NFL, it just kind of chews you up and spits you out. And, I got to go to Washington and be there for 7 years, and I started at times and was just well coached.
Yeah.
And I think if you are a Washington fan, like, you got to respect like some of the guys that have came through the building there. Like, it's been, look what they're doing now. Like, it's been impressive. The Shanahans, McVay, Kevin, like a lot of the guys who were position coaches are now coordinators in different places. And I think just having those years like after Cleveland just really, really like helped me find my confidence and figure out like, oh yeah, like I understand, like this fits me. Like I feel good in this system. I can play.
No question. And lastly, in Washington, what'd you learn from Will Compton?
How to start a podcast?
Yeah. He's done a pretty good job at it. Did you imagine that Will would have such a successful following?
I didn't know like what he always talked about like I'm gonna do a podcast or like he was the one person in the locker room that was able to walk up and talk to anybody and start up a conversation and like maybe pick at him a little bit, maybe get him out of their like he just has that personality to really be able to relate to almost anybody. Yep. So it turned into like he was like the team mascot for a couple years. So I'm not shocked that like that he goes out and like is crushing his own podcast and doing it big. Like they're doing a lot of good stuff.
Will's the man. Okay, so you're in Arizona now. John Gannon, I know him from Philly. Great guy, hell of a coach. You got to be excited about all the verticals, the shots. Have you given him shit about that clip yet?
Pew pew pew.
Do you pew it, John?
I saw the video like you. Like I think what I love about Coach Gannon is like he brings energy every day, right?
Yeah.
And the staff that he hired, you can say what you want. They're all young. Like a lot of them haven't, been in coordinator positions or called plays or whatever. But they're all, excited to be here. They bring a lot of juice. They have an answer every time I ask a question. Like, it's a fun staff for sure.
Yeah. What's the difference between playing for a defensive head coach and an offensive head coach? Because you've had both. The way it structures and trickles down to the players. Yeah.
There seems to be tons of conversation about that, right? What's better? Like, can you develop quarterbacks if you got a defensive head coach? Like, I think Coach Gannon's been great, right? Like, yeah. I think that you got to sit through a couple team meetings where we're talking about, Robert inside and Robert outside and Robert drop and all like, I'm like, I mean, okay, like, but for the most part, I think that he really has done a good job of like setting the expectations early, like from day one, right? Here's who I want us to become. Here's how we're going to get there. Now let's go. Let's start implementing all these things and have a great camp. So we've only been with them for 9 weeks, right? But I feel like as a team, outside of this building, right? Nobody really knows what's going on. There's some storylines out there about like, what are the Arizona Cardinals going to do this year, right? Like, you cut your star receiver or whatever. There's a lot of questions, but I think for what we've been able to accomplish over these 9 weeks in the summer has been a lot, right? Like, and the one thing that I respect about Coach Gannon and Monty and sort of the whole front office is different too, right? They've come in here and like just said, we're going to evaluate everybody. Here's our expectations. Here's what we want to do. Here's who the team that we want to be. Here's our philosophy on offense and defense. Like, nothing's really a secret right now. It's all, like, right there.
Mm-hmm. And how about, J.J. Watt's retirement? Because, I was kind of surprised by it. He was still playing at a high level. Was that something guys in the locker room saw coming, or was that kind of last month of the season thing where we started learning about it?
Yeah. I mean, I got to be pretty close with JJ over the last 2 years, right? Kind of these your older guys kind of flock together, right? Like in
Future
the locker room.
podcaster, JJ.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I just talked to him the other day, so he's getting ready to start, getting in the media.
Yeah, he's got his hands in all kinds of stuff, with the soccer team and
Yep.
all that. But I think, one of the conversations I had with JJ, without putting all his, life out there, is like, I know that he was writing him letters like himself later in the season about like how his body felt. Like I will not do this next year. I will not put myself in like.
JJ,
and so
do not.
I thought that was my indication of like, wow, he's really taking this seriously. And I probably was one of the few, maybe the only one who was like, yeah, but you'll come back and play, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he would look me dead in the eyes and be like, nope, I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm not. Like, the NFL has been amazing to me. It's provided me with so many things. I just can't put my body through this again. And, sure enough, he stuck to it.
No
and I thought the
question.
way it ended in San Francisco, like you're on the road in the division. They're probably going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We're not making the playoffs, and he makes a sack, and they give him we pull him out of the game, and they give him a standing ovation. Like that's sort of that's one of the coolest things I've seen. Right.
That's a great way to go out, man. He had a great
like
career.
that's not going to happen for most people. And
no, it's good to go. It's good to go out playing at a high level, and that's what he did. I mean, and he's able to read those letters and say, "Hey, I don't want to feel like this next year." So,
exactly.
With Kyler, what's your job when it comes to like, he's taken some shit the last year. There are bumps in the road. There are injuries. There's in today's game, like there's a lot of rumors and that sort of thing. You are a guy who's been around, and I feel like anybody you're around, you're going to have a positive effect on. What is your very unique role with Kyler? Not just getting him ready to play, but like getting him ready to embark on this journey where he gets back on a heater.
Yeah, right. Which I think we at least I know that he can. Like, he can do some things that nobody else can do, right? And you talk about. When I think about playing the quarterback position and, like, if I'm going to evaluate somebody, like, the number one thing I'm going to put on the chart is accuracy.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, Kyler's accuracy is insane.
Yeah.
Especially being a shorter guy. Like, it's impressive how he throws the ball over the middle. It's impressive how he puts the ball outside. Like, he can do it all. Now he's coming off injury. I think the challenge for us, for, like, our quarterback room, for me even is, hey, okay, this is an entirely new system. This is like from square one. Like the philosophies are like it's all laid out there. It's different. Like this is different than what we did. Like what's the best way to learn this, right? Kyler, we've been in the same system he's been in it for 3 years. I was in it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're coming off a knee and you're spending a lot of time in the training room and you're working out, you're trying to strengthen it, you're trying to get back out on the field, like as important as all that is like sitting in the meeting rooms and understanding even the little things like cadence or like what we like who's the read, which side of the field we work, just things that like getting those reps are almost invaluable. So how do you somehow try to like get as much as you can without actually taking the ball, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think he's done a really good job. I think the coaches have done a really good job. But I think for us in the room, it's just communicating, talking. Hey, like I had a conversation with him today. Like, hey, like here's one of the footwork things they're asking us to do that like has been hard for me, right? I've been doing it one way for almost 20 years. And now we're flipping our feet and like trying to play it a little bit different. I was like, whenever you get out on the field, like you need to call me because this is probably the most different thing that we're doing than what we're used to. That's going to be hard to like understand.
Yeah.
And so just things like that. I mean, he's obviously like I've never gone through an ACL. I've had some a pretty significant injury and like those dark spots you get into. Like those days where you're just like I'm plateaued. I'm not feeling any better. Like I think that he's handled all of that like really well.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you guys, and I'm excited about the Paris Johnson kid. He looks like a beast. He looks like he's a super athlete, so a little more protection on the way for you there, big dog. And I hope you'll come join us on the show again after a big win or two this year.
That'd be awesome.
Certainly enjoyed catching up with you. Utmost respect, dude. Love watching you, love playing against you, and I just hear the best things from your boys. So keep being you, and we'll be pulling for you.
I appreciate it, dude. I had fun. This was great, and
man.
That'd be fun. We get a couple wins under our belt and hop back on.
Come on back, brother. All right, good talking to you, Colt.
Okay, see you, bud.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.